Eyes on the immigration situation along the southern border. There may be impacts closer to home.
So while the Mexican border is what you hear about the most in the news, our state's northern border with Canada has really seen an uptick in arrests of people trying to cross illegally into the U.S. That is according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection. So we sent our Brandy Cruz up to the border to learn more, and she's here with that story. Good morning.
Yeah, this is a border, although it's much closer to home, that tends to go under the radar. And look, that's fair. I mean, the situation on the southern border is much different than what we're dealing with here, certainly by scale. And so when you talk about one getting maybe more attention than the other, that makes a lot of sense. But on the northern border of Washington state, as different as it may be from what's happening down south, agents with Customs and Border Protection may be seeing the impacts of our nation's immigration crisis firsthand.
So we're standing right on the border. So this road here obviously is in the United States, and just on the other side there is Canada.
Even standing right at the border, it can be hard to tell which country you're in. This cow, American. This bicyclist, in Canada. Cow, United States. Man on bike, Canada. At what point then has somebody illegally crossed into Canada?
So as soon as you cross this ditch, you've entered Canada.
It's a far departure from our trip to the southern border this time last year. Over there is Juarez, Mexico, a dangerous city where on the Texas-Mexico line, the nation's immigration crisis was boiling over.
This is no place for children.
The mayors who came here are going to demand entry into this facility. But if you ask those on the front lines, the mission on the southern border and the mission on the northern border are one and the same. So what do you say your mission is here?
Very simple. Our mission is to secure the border and do border security work.
Chief Patrol Agent Chris Bipley is in charge of Blaine Sector for the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. From the Cascades west, his men and women are tasked with keeping the border secure.
So Blaine Sector is responsible for the 89 miles of land border here. It is a vast area and is a very complex and diverse area from a law enforcement and a border security standpoint.
In our state, carrying out the border security mission can be a unique challenge because protecting the northern border here also involves monitoring and patrolling some 160 miles of border out there.
Right now you are on board one of our maritime interceptors. Our boat is right here. The biggest issue that we deal with here is the complexity of the environment. There's a lot of geographic space and a lot of water.
Supervisory Agent Joshua Johnson is with Border Protection's Air and Marine Operations. They're responsible for patrolling the border by air and by sea. We're figuring out whether someone is crossing illegally is much more complex.
In the water, unlike on the land, physically crossing into the United States across the water does not in itself constitute a crime. Part of our job then becomes how do we differentiate between what is legitimate and what isn't.
But whether it's on the water or on land, agents are looking out for the same type of threats.
Terrorism is always in the front of our mind. Individuals coming to this country to do bad things. We face human smuggling. We face human trafficking. We face drug smuggling, currency smuggling.
Something unique to the U.S.-Canadian border is that the smuggling goes both ways. Not only do drugs come into the United States, they also go out.
MDMA is going north. We'll see cocaine going south. We'll see other narcotics from time to time going both directions.
So far this year alone, he says his agents have seized 275 pounds of meth. Compare that to none in 2018.
This room is our dispatch center. You're looking at some screens that are represent images we're seeing in our remote video surveillance system.
Agents rely on a combination of intelligence, manpower, and technology to identify and locate threats along the border, including ground sensors that detect movement,
Alert 3.
and cameras placed strategically along the border. Where's the nearest fixed camera?
It's right down there.
Okay, and can that see us?
It can.
Of course, there's a humanitarian side to this job as well.
As everybody is aware, there is a crisis taking place on the southern border right now. It is a humanitarian crisis. It is absolutely a border security crisis. So we are not seeing numbers anywhere near what they're seeing on the southern border, but we are seeing some similar trends.
As migrants come into the U.S. border through Mexico by the thousands, others may see the Canadian border as an easier passage. Is there a concern that you might have more Mexican nationals coming up to Canada and crossing at a place like this where it's relatively easy to get across?
So in fact, our numbers of apprehensions of individuals from Mexico has increased the last 2 years. So that is something we're watching closely to see whether or not there is a correlation between what is taking place on the southern border.
So far this year, 177 people have been apprehended illegally crossing into the U.S. here in the Blaine sector. That's more than double from the same period last year. Among them, the top 5 nationalities are Indian, Guatemalan, Romanian, Canadian, and Mexican. 70% of them made a claim of credible fear, asking to seek asylum in the U.S. As the debate over our nation's immigration policies continue, the optics of a border agent's job are hard to escape.
There's obviously a lot of politics surrounding border issues as of late. I won't make you speak to the issues that are happening at the southern border, but do you find your job to be political?
I don't. Our job is border security. And it has been for years and years, and it continues to be border security.
Which means that regardless of a change in policies or presidents, their focus on the overall mission remains the same.
Part of donning the gear is removing my personal opinions from the equation and dealing with the matter of law. Our ethos and how we approach the job changes based on administrations and cabinets, but that's not for me to define. We come, we do our job, we do it as professionally as we can, and we realize that there is a human aspect to it, and then we move on.